that volume. Woo! Hey, Michael. Welcome to the show. March 1st, we made it through February. How's everybody doing? Great to see you. Welcome to the show. March 1st, 2023. We are officially checked in. Jack Sonny, your host. Mike D.
030123. We're living it. We're living the dream here. The Coach Mike, same team selling. We
made it. Go, do your thing. Do your thing.
We help folks that are just doing really good, but they're trying to get better. You know, they're frustrated. They're investing a lot in marketing, you know, and they're just not getting the return on their investment. Getting leads in, but nobody knows how to qualify them. They're running all over town chasing their tail. And they're just frustrated because they know there's something missing and they just can't quite put the finger on it. But if they had a little help, maybe they could. Well, we're here to help. And so if we can help you out with some of that anxiety and frustration, we'd like to talk to you. SameTeamSelling.com.
I think I got it. Hold on. There you go. Boom. There you go. Highly recommend Same Team Selling. Mike, his wife Angel, amazing at what they do. Go see Same Team Selling. If your team, if your company is struggling with the sales process, they are great. We've used them at several of my companies. Amazing. Hey, today's topic is, if you saw the LinkedIn post, is really about Amazon and their decision here of the last week after doing an enormous amount of study of their employee base and what's worked and what's not worked. They've decided to mandate at least a 3-day work week. So that's the topic we're going to talk about today, debate back and forth. If you're on social media, you've seen this bantered around a lot. So it should be an interesting little debate. Kind of want to talk about the pros and cons and the rationale for their decision, which at least was based on analytics. So that's the topic for today. Good. And so before we dive in, I want to thank the folks at i.help for sponsoring this show. If you're unfamiliar with i.help, they aggregate everything that you do online into one place. So whatever you do to connect with people in a virtual work world, they aggregate that for you on one page. So instead of having to send, we've all done this, sent emails and texts and like, here's my website and here's my LinkedIn page and here's how you reach me if you're trying to, call me. Imagine all of that in one spot where you could say, hey, you can connect with me via web conference here. And I'm going to share this large file here as well. You don't have to send an email and get it bounced back to you. So i.help is amazing. It's one of the things that has grown out of this new work from home, manage from home environment. So encourage you to go get your i.help account. Appreciate them sponsoring the show. The link is below. $5 a month. Amazing. Go get your i.help account. Super helpful for everything that you're doing in this new work from home world. So appreciate the sponsorship. My new digs. I have moved.
Nice.
It seems that 8,000 time in the last year. So part of that is true. I have literally moved around way too much over the last 2.5 years. You'd think I'm running from COVID. No idea. Half of it's not even planned. So new digs here in Northern Florida. And so maybe I'll be here for more than a year. That's the plan. But we're getting set up at the house. So the lighting, office, and all will get better as we go. So anything happening in the world, the Denker world?
Oh, man, things are good over in the Denkerland. I have 2 children that are 30, which is
I saw right birthdays this week. Yeah.
Our second daughter hit 30 on Monday, and we have 1 child left in the 20s, and he's heading out. He's moving on. He's moving closer to 30 as we speak. And it's funny that it's just so weird thinking about your kids being like deep in adulthood.
Adulthood.
Not just like, they just crossed over into adulthood. Like they are deep.
With kids.
It's just crazy.
And that makes you a grandpa. So it just means we're getting old. So cool. So let's dive right in. So I want to spend today's show. It really is about Amazon. Obviously, one of the biggest companies, certainly most influential companies in the United States. And certainly in the tech world, everyone knows the story for Jeff Bezos growing from a book seller to a major, the preeminent e-commerce platform. And so Amazon released a study last week, I think about 7-8 days ago, and just said, hey, we want to be smart, which I love. We want to be smart about the decisions we're going to make corporately. Really amazing. And so they spent time studying 1.5 million of their employees, what's worked, what's not worked, COVID the last 3 years. Believe it or not, we've been in this process for 3 years now. Mid-March 2020, about 3 years ago now, really COVID became a real thing. It was talked about, oh, it's just happening overseas, and really landed on the U.S. shores the end of February, and now we're 3 years into it. And so instead of just following anecdotally what's working or not working, they did a complete study of their workforce and came to a series of conclusions. And so we have a summary of those. I think I have that. Hold on. So here is the outtakes from this study. Now, just before anyone chimes in, of course, sometimes we have study biased, and sometimes we come to the conclusions we want to come to, which is fair. But these are the four. Let me read them, and then Mike, I'll turn it over to get your feedback. But this is, these are the four things he said. It's easier to learn, model, practice, strengthen our culture. We're in office together most of the time, surrounded by our colleagues. Collaborating and inventing is easier and more effective. We're in person. I actually agree with number two. Learning from one another. Obviously, learning from one another is easier in person. And teams tend to be better connected to one another when they see each other in person more frequently. So those are the four big outtakes when they talk about, what's working and what some challenges people are feeling. And so what's your sense, Mike, of those four conclusions from the great folks over at Amazon?
Well, just from your gut, like an anecdotal feeling, right? Is there hard to argue with any of those 4 points? It's like, wow, we collaborate better, we create better, we get along better, we talk more to each other. The upside of those 4 points is it's well made. And the fact that beyond anecdotal, it's over 2 years of experimenting.
Three
environments,
now.
right?
Yeah,
they looked at it from, whether they did hybrid teams, they did only work at the office teams, they did only work from home teams. They compared, they saw what they could do and what the outcomes were happening. And that was something that, we couldn't do during COVID because everybody was just working from home. But the research they did, it reminds me of all the research we read about pre-COVID, right? That there were a lot of people looking into working from home and developing best practices and trying to figure out how to do this. And what did they do? Well, they sent one part of their employee groups home, and they sent another part of their employee groups to keep coming back to the office, doing the same roles and jobs. Then they compared outcomes. They compared the ways that, where they were successful. And they found that some of those, even though those 4 points are well made, and of course they're supported by the data, there's other points that people, it didn't say, so if your role requires deep thinking and intense problem solving, it didn't say working in the office was the best for that, right? We've talked about that before. Like, I've got a big project to do, a lot of really intense work to do. I'm going to go home this afternoon to make sure I get that done, right? Or I talked to somebody just this morning. They said they have an upstairs. We were doing some training, and he happened to mention that he goes to his upstairs training room when it's empty to get his thought work done. The work he's got to get done. He goes up there alone. He goes, "Oh, I just knock it right out. I get all my work done when I'm up here." And then I go back downstairs, and it's just like what it just said on Amazon. I go back downstairs and get the culture. He's a young guy that's new to the company. I get the apprenticeship. I get to experience and learn from the people around me. So it's a yes and a yes. And the reason it's so easy to be supportive of what Amazon said is that 3 days a week, right, that we want you to come in and take advantage of these things. But they obviously, if they said 5 days a week, it means they said, oh, across the board, working from the office is beneficial. But they're a super smart company with a lot of data. They said we're going to allow 40% of our work time to be from home in many cases, based upon what's best for your team. But they wouldn't have said that if they didn't find value in some working from home.
Yes. So they took this. So Mike, jumping ahead. Look, these are the.
I'm sorry. Did I get ahead?
No, it's okay. It's so funny because to me, when I see these, it's like, it's like, hey, let's study it. Like, it almost would have had these before they started the study. And it's what I didn't like is there was no. They didn't really walk through the proactive nature of being alone. Working from home, like you just said. I don't think anyone, if you've been in a cubicle surrounded by 50 people trying to get something important done or work, write a good thought piece or, strategically think about a problem, not great. but these things are true. The things that they came up with are true. I think all of them are true, particularly 2 and 4. When you're trying to connect and build culture, they're all true. And so this led to their CEO. If you're not aware, Jeff Bezos is now the chairman. And so the current CEO, Andy, I think Jazzy, they say it, let us include, we should go back to the office a majority of the time, right? Which meant, as Mike just said, if you've missed this announcement, on May 1st, down here at the bottom, they're going to go back up here. If you see the 4th or 5th line down, 3 days a week, really mandatory unless you have some exception. So Amazon decided, hey, after studying their over 1.5 million people, they believe the current best work setup is this hybrid approach where they want folks in the office 3 days a week, which, as you said, is really amazing, because they didn't say, oh, let's go back to 5. Now, you don't know whether that's because they feel like they have such a big resignation or there wasn't the political willpower to mandate that. But admire that they studied it. But interesting, the conclusion they got to, hey, we're 3 days a week. Here's why. And it'll be interesting for me to see how that plays out, because there is what does it look like a year from now? And there's a hot debate. I have some of the comments online about why and what. And again, the folks that are on each camp are very visceral in their response. The folks that want to work from home, dug in. And the folks that want to be in the office all the time are really, really dug in. It's almost like the political debate we have today. There's no middle ground. You're either a Democrat or Republican, no middle ground. And the same now with this work from home, manage from home. You're either all the time or no time. And it's really, folks are super dug in right now.
And I hope we get the rest of the story out of Amazon, because I'm sure they have, just 2 years, 1.5. It's a lot. It's a great study. And we know they were motivated to get it right. They weren't, they've proven themselves to be innovative, try anything. I mean, Amazon is a company that, of all the companies that would say, hey, we're going to try to really get to the bottom of this, and we're going to operate from what we discover as best practices from what we learn, they've proven that's what they do. And so I think I'm excited about everything they've done. I'm a little disappointed in the article, though, because it really is, it's selling going back to the office.
Yeah.
Right. It's definitely a piece that says, listen, we're going back to the office, and here's all the really good reasons why. And I think one of the things we've learned about our culture now is that our culture demands to know both sides of the story. And it's not even like I'm disappointed. Like, I'm not bummed. That's old school marketing. That's where I cut my teeth. Right. I get it. Like, let me give you the good news. But I think in the day and age we live in now, we like to hear the whole story. And feel like give me everything you have so I can make a good decision for myself and feel good about it. And so I think when they release the rest of the story, I think they'll actually get better buy-in from their employee group.
Here's a comment from Laura. It's interesting. I think, and this is, she concurs, hey, be in the office, there's benefits. And, we have, we've covered this topic. I think Mike hit on it earlier, or Mike did hit on it earlier. There are no doubt cultural, training, and human interaction parts that are better in person, right? But then when you deep dive into it, what's really interesting, those things also have some negativity, right? They really do. There's some major negatives with that, which is in team building, right? Folks that are more extrovert, more vocal, can silence some of the quiet people. It's hard to really get deep intellectual things done especially the new open work environments, right? With the desk and the cubes and all this stuff, people are tripping on each other. Everyone's kind of on top of each other, really hard to do thought pieces. And, as Mike mentioned back in the day, folks would always say, hey, I got to really work on this. And like, either I'm going upstairs to the quiet place or I'm going to go home. And so I think they got to what I think is the forthcoming answer, which is this 3-day-a-week thing. I think that's really, where we're going as a hybrid model, which is, I know for us corporately, we've really focused on some of the companies we work with are 3 days a week, the middle 3, right? But this 3 days a week has really been the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and folks have kind of an extended weekend. That to me feels, Mike and I have not talked about this, but that feels like the right hybrid approach. I mean, I know folks that want to stay at home and are dug in, don't want to come in at all, but to say, hey, you really have a 4-day weekend time where you're not traveling, and the middle of the week, you're going to do the best to build kind of your camaraderie. To me, that feels like where we are in corporate America, having touched and talked to hundreds of companies now about this process. It seems like we're in that hybrid 3 days a week, maybe you piggyback early in the week or end of the week, but it seems like we're in that hybrid mode. Doesn't it seem, what do you think, Mike?
I think so too. And it was interesting. I was in the library the other day and I saw this hardbound book. It looked like it was about 3 inches thick, this hardcover book. And I thought, wait a minute, I've read that book, but thank God I bought it in a paperback, because if I would ever seen how thick it was, I would have never picked the book up. But it was called Wikinomics. And Wikinomics is a really interesting, it was built off of Wikipedia, and that book's probably 10, 15 years old now. But what was really interesting, it was that none of us is as smart as all of us. That was my takeaway from the big thick book, that none of us is as smart as all of us. And, I love some of the anecdotal stuff I love the anecdotal stuff about how, a lot of great things happen after the meeting's over. A lot of great things happen walking down the hallway. A lot of things happen. And that's sort of like almost the informal between the lines part of your workday at the office that working from home doesn't facilitate. It's really hard to, make that happen. And so there is a really good argument about the things we do together collegially and together and with teams and maximizing our efforts by working together. And then there's that other part that if you're pushing back against this, you're really just like, I don't want to go to the office anymore. I hate commuting. I've learned not to commute. I don't want to ever commute again. And I get that. But from a corporate perspective, we have to be honest that yes, there's some things that will happen better at the office. And then there'll be, like Jack said, some of those things that there'll be disruptions in our cubicle that we probably got some disruptions working from home. They just wasn't Bob from 3 cubicles over. It was our teenager from 2 bedrooms over, but those things still happened at home. And now we're going to adapt where maybe we get the best of both environments, right? Maybe you get to learn that it is worth it commuting to go hang out with the folks and be part of the team. Like maybe you'll get energized for it when you experience it, right? On paper, it looks like, oh no, I get to see them on Zoom and I get to stay in my, pajamas half the day. I'm good. Right? And I'm not mocking. I know a lot of people work hard and shave and put a suit on every day working from home because they know that they've got to keep themselves in the groove, but there is something really good about adapting and trying to find the best of this, because we've known all along there's a best to this and there's going to be exceptions on either side. Like manufacturing, you got to go to the office every day, right?
Well,
sales is one of those exceptions where we go to the office like once a quarter.
Well, what's interesting, you mentioned the manufacturing thing. That's going to be, we're going to focus on that next week's show, is there are a variety of companies now that are doing the 4-day work week. So even you see this happening a lot. There's 3 or 4 companies out there, and the results on that preliminarily have really been amazing. Like folks love it. They're kind of taking Y5 and they're kind of doing 4-day work weeks. And it's really interesting. The government gets a really bad rap for being antiquated and behind the times. But I'll tell you, as somebody who's worked with the government for a long period of time now, both on that side and as a contractor, like the government's been ahead of the world in 2 things. This socioeconomic, trying to help build historically disadvantaged people groups. They're way ahead of most of the world in that setting, and try to help small businesses, woman-owned business, minority-owned businesses, veteran-owned business. Amazing. Been very proactive. And the other area, they've been with creative work schedules. The government's been, when I worked with the Navy, this is in the early 1990s, they already had 4-day work weeks or condensing, every other Friday. The government has been very progressive in this world. And you see companies now, we'll talk about it next week, going to this 4-day work week, which, like you said, there's this COVID thing, probably the best thing about it is going to be to disrupt things it lasted too long. The e-medicine, the e-learning, this work schedule, but it's painful, right? And I think that's really what's happening. And there's this debate that's going on online. You'll see there's a ton. If you go onto Twitter or any social media, there's a lot of, this, when we started this topic, it was about managing from home. Are you able to manage from home? There's a lot of talk about work from home, but are you able to manage from home? Or if you're a manager, did you get training on managing from home? And how does that differ from in person? And there is no more management by walking around, and you don't see people face to face. And a lot of the interpersonal things are lost because you're only in a video screen. You're always in a box, Mike always talks about. But this is literally when Amazon announces this, the remote group, right, which is, hey, very pro, let's be remote. It's like, yep, remote work is super scary for bad managers, right? And so they felt Amazon was caving into not training their managers, just kind of acquiescing back to forcing people back in the office. And so there's a lot of back and forth debate. But I think this is the right hybrid model, whether it's 2 or 3 days seems to be the landing spot for most companies, as well as we need additional training for when we're not in the office. How do we make those days productive, right?
You know, we did our show on creativity, you know, working from home and being creative and fostering and facilitating creativity. And one of the things we talked about was constraints, right? When you put constraints on someone, they actually perform higher, right? Under constraints than with no constraints. Sort of like, oh, I got all day, I'll get to it. But under constraints, like, you're getting my best right now and with a great intensity. And I think managing from home is like that. That if we're going to be really good at it, we're going to operate under some new constraints. Limited. We can't rely on the water cooler like we used to. We can't rely on sort of, I mean, you kind of learned how to work the grapevine when you worked in the office. You know, you knew who knew what because they were in the know, and you knew, like, you need to know at least one person that was a smoker. So because there's a whole company going on outside there at the every 15, you know, at the 15-minute breaks around the smoke things. And it was interesting, you know, the strange dynamics you learned how to navigate working in the office. Well, I think we're still, even at the Amazon level, I would love to see how they're addressing and saying, here's some subtleties we learned about working from home and managing from home that we really do think make things different. And if we learn how to and then if our managers get really good at great management from those constraints, they should be off the chart when they get back to the office, right? They should just be like, if you can build culture, deliver performance, and keep everybody in low retention, work in a team virtually, you should be a rock star when you get back to the office, because it's no more, you know, you don't need any ogre tools or whatever, over management tools. You've learned how to really get the best out of people with true, you know, management / leadership.
I picture these companies. I always thought about the smoker thing is so real. Like that group of folks, you know, that typically huddles in certain spots. Be great. Maybe not great. That's the wrong word. It'd be interesting. A company's a little mic out there, right? If we have this thing managed from home now, folks are all worried about, oh, they're watching my computer and they have all this monitoring software. In the old days, you just put a recording device out where the smokers sit, and you actually hear what's actually going on in your own company if you're trying to chase that. But this, you know, what's interesting, you said that this managed from home dynamic, what's really interesting, that I'd love to hear the conversation happening at Amazon and other companies. Great that the compromise is we're going to go 3 days, 2 days, right? Cool. Or 2 days, 3 days, 2 days, or 2 days, 3 days, whatever you're going to do, right? But what's going to happen, if you're a manager, this managed from home, now it's even more complex, because before it was all in the office, got my model, you're successful managers. Now, the last 3 years, folks have been struggling this management from home. What do I do? How do I do it different? Cultures in a box, all those things. Now, as a hybrid, you got to be able to turn one on and turn the other one off, right? Oh, today's a folks are in the office day. I have some stuff that works for me is good. But now if I'm managed from home now, everybody's remote. Everybody, what environment are they in? What's their mindset? How do I interact with them? Am I slacking? Am I emailing? Are we calling? What's the work paradigm? It's going to be a challenge, right? It's going to be a challenge because folks have to be cognizant of where is my workforce today? Where am I today? And invoke the models that maximize those two settings, because they're not the same. There's almost no overlap between the skills that make you a good manager from home and a good manager in the office.
You know, it's interesting, Jack. You reminded me of, I mean, you and I have been running remote teams for decades. And, you know, 1999 was the first time I took over a remote team from my remote office. And when you talk about those differences, well, if I was at home, I managed, I had everything I needed. Like I was in my administrative role and managing, and I was just managing. But when you went into the field, it was sort of player coach, sort of manager, sort of trainer, sort of on your game, and take somebody out to dinner and get back to the office. And when you finally get back to your office, which is a hotel room, it's 9:30 at night. You still got 4 hours of administration ahead of you. You had to really get good at that, or else you would get, you either adapted to that or you just gave up on this whole idea of working, managing from the field. And so, and managing from home takes it a step further, because now there's just no home office, right? Your folks are in the field, you're in the field, and it's always been a challenge. And it's funny that I saw it's so funny when I read it at the end of the thing where it says, and the sales team and some customer service that will be the exceptions. And it's when you spent your whole career being the exception inside an organization, you find yourself feeling exceptional. And so
or excluded. What about this? The one thing I know we talked about offline is this part, right? That as this change takes place, there's going to be an impact to the community, right?
Man, thinking about like Amazon not working, going to work from home. If I had one of the 3 restaurants closest to the Amazon headquarters or Amazon regional office, I would be devastated that they went to work from home. And so I thought that was, what a great thought, though, that even if it is 3 days a week, for the businesses that were sort of leaning on the large companies in their area to bring in the crowds for lunch, to bring in the crowds for dry cleaning, bring in the crowds for even just local small businesses. I mean, just the influx of people coming back into their retail establishments and service organizations is just going to be huge. And it was something that maybe it was kind of absent from my thought process around working from home versus working from the office. And I definitely support, I just think it's going to be, that's one of the really upsides of Amazon bringing people back 3 days a week, is that those businesses that are around Amazon are really going to benefit. They'll see a boon from that. You're on mute, or lost. You're on mute. Sorry,
I was busy coughing from my cold. It's interesting. The business has been doing that. It's almost not thought about, right? There's a couple of restaurants when I'm in the city. They're like, yeah, so-and-so closed. They went work from home, blah, blah, blah. Now that they're back, those businesses, you're right, will be affected. And so it will have a trickle effect out in the community, which should help, variety, and maybe not so much where these folks all live. So maybe we move back downtown, or some of the businesses pop up, but it will have ripple effects throughout the, wherever those companies are headquartered. So,
it's interesting. It's funny. I took a class in college in oceanography, and I thought during that entire class, when would I ever use this ever in my career? Today's the day. Plate tectonics. So plate tectonics are the earth and the whole crust of the earth. And it's all these plates. And when they ram into each other, we get mountains. And when they ram each other and separate, when they separate, we get earthquakes and fault lines and valley and canyons. And so it's going on in the ocean floor all the time. That's why we studied oceanography. But interestingly, our society is going through these tectonic shifts.
Yeah.
Like just it's going to look so different. It's going to look similar, but different, right? That, just like you said, as a manager, I used to be A or B. I was at the office, or now it's A and B every week. I'm going to be managing from home 2 days a week. I'm going to be managing from the office 3 days a week, or depending on how it adjusts out, because they said they're going to make adjustments for different teams. And that's a challenge that needs to be addressed. And then what's the best use of my teams in the two environments, right? Obviously, they're different environments. I should have different expectations for different types of outputs from the two different environments, because otherwise if I don't get two different kinds of work levels, I should just have one work environment. But if there's benefits in the other one, I want to make sure my folks are focused on that kind of work that is most benefited from being at home, and the opposite, right? And manage that way, have those design expectations. So as much as it becomes more challenging to manage, and I don't even think we've mastered managing from home. Now it's managing from both. It's MFB, right? Managing from both. But when we do it, if we do it well, we're going to get the best of our teams, right? We're getting to the place of really optimizing performance by managing, adding on the complexity of managing in two places.
Yeah, I think my last two things that strike me are, one, I think it's interesting in the announcement that you'll see from Amazon, they mentioned down here at the bottom, it's May 1st, right? So I think that's great. I think it gives folks a chance to adjust, and maybe the folks that are really dug in, they do something different, right? But it's not tomorrow, which I really applaud them for, big company kind of giving folks time to adjust. And it's not like, oh, April 1st or March 1st. So they're giving folks time to, hey, here's our new policy. And it's interesting, if you go way back and study Amazon, they said a year and a half, 2 years ago, oh, we're not going back in the office. So, those are one of the edict people, and obviously they're changing direction. So giving folks time to adjust and plan and get training for what they need for this new adjustment, I think is great. And then secondly, on the employee side, again, I've said this several times during this set of shows that, when back before COVID, we all did things as an employee that we didn't want to do, right? So some of the work products, some of the meetings, we did things we did not want to do. And then something happened with COVID where folks went home and employees got more belligerent. We got more like, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. And you can't make me do it. And it's really weird. They're really dug in on that. And so I think we forget, if the policy is 3 days in the office, 2 days not, so you have a 4-day weekend or whatever that looks like, really, that's still an amazing, positive progress as far as finding, more work-life balance. And folks they just see it as like, oh, you took something away from me that was forced upon us. And just encourage folks to see the glass half full. And it's easy to see it half empty in this very polarized environment we've lived in since COVID and the riots and all the mistrust in the political parties and the vaccines and the process. And I just want to point that out. Again, we as employees have always had to do things because we get a paycheck that we didn't want to do. And this is one of them, right? And it'll continue to evolve. Maybe it's down to 2 days a week. We're all in this petri dish together trying to figure out what works. And it's about, I just want to say lastly, making things better, ROI, the productivity. If you're able to produce at a higher or better level than you were in the office, amen. And if you're not, well, this comes along with it, right? So for those of you who love work from home, bust your hump, make sure your productivity is out the roof. That's what managers really care about. It's what the company really cares about. And if you're not, well, hey, this comes with the territory of we got to do something because we got to be productivity. We have to provide our investors with an ROI. So those are I think both sides of the coin that are again going to play out live for all of us as Amazon's one of the biggest companies in the world. And whatever they do, there's a lot of press and coverage around it.
Well, I think that what's interesting is that one of the other challenges from work from home has been getting recognition. Some people talk about their personal brand. I used to always laugh when I had people like, I'm working on my personal brand. But there is a truth to it, right? Inside an organization, you do have a personal brand. You have a reputation. And when you get to work among the people and brush shoulders with the senior VP and brush shoulders with the CEO every once in a while and passing, you hope that you're helping every time in those interactions, you're helping your reputation.
Yeah.
And going back to the office, because we sort of lost sight of the career growth and career path and trajectory that I'm just going to take care of myself. Well, that's okay. But if you're still interested in building a career, being promoted, getting advanced, growing inside an organization, you've got to bring your best attitude no matter what the new policies are.
But it's okay you say that. There could be new opportunities for you to network and be closer, CEO, VP, director that you didn't have in the past because less people around, less people in the office. Maybe you show up on Monday and Friday when you don't have to. That's very interesting. You bring that up. There's a chance to network, connect in a way that you didn't have. We had to be working in an office in South Florida where IBM used to be headquartered, and you see how big it is. And now the chance to cross paths with somebody that has great influence in the division you work in. There might be opportunities that you never had before to, again, stand out and like you said, network and build your presence and not just be a name on a role. You're like, oh, I know Susan, I know Mike. They work downstairs. I had lunch with them. We had coffee. I bumped into them here. Like that is definitely a chance to increase your sphere of influence in your organization, right? That's great.
You know, it's funny, Jack. I got acquired. My company out of California got acquired by a company in Texas, in Austin, Texas. And so after I got acquired, I went to the headquarters for the first time, and I was nervous and I was all excited. I'm like, I'm telling myself on the airplane out there, bring your best, bring your best, bring your best, bring your best. Don't let down, bring your best. You can take a nap when you get back home, bring your best. And I was standing outside one of the conference room waiting for somebody. And some guy comes by, first time I've ever been at headquarters, some guy, and he just got off of a long bike ride. He's stinky, sweaty, he's pushing his bike. I'm like, in my mind, I said, who the heck is this guy? In my mouth, my attitude, I said, bring your best, bring your best, bring your best. And I had a great conversation with him. I learned all about his bike routes and where he went and how long he'd been in biking, what kind of bike it was and why he bought that kind of bike. And then when he walked away, somebody walked up and he goes, dude, how do you do that? I go, what do you mean? He goes, you've been here for a day and a half and you've already spent 20 minutes talking to the CEO. I'm like, that was the CEO?
You never know. Yeah, you never know.
Never know. Bring your best.
It's great. Yeah, listen, just to level set again, or wrap, again, Amazon, factually, I love it. I love that they didn't just regress into kind of what the norm was and took the time and energy to document and study and get feedback and do surveys. And again, whether you agree or don't agree with these conclusions, whatever, but at least they're doing the due diligence, which a lot of companies, to be very honest, are not doing, right? And them deciding to go back to work 3 days a week beginning May 1st. Just statistically great stuff. And so it'll be interesting. Again, it'll be interesting to see 2 years from now, does that play out? Are they back to 5 days? Do they go down to 2? Do they stay at 3? It'll be very, very interesting because companies like that, smaller companies will use to set as their paradigm. Hey, Google does that. Amazon does that. So just critical because they're benchmark companies. Because a lot of people, first off, we're doing, Elon sent his people back. And it's like, I know, but do you work at SpaceX or, are you on the Tesla project? A different environment, different strokes for different folks, right? And so
he lost people he never thought he would lose.
Oh, he retrenched.
You know what I mean?
He definitely went back.
He didn't get a phone call going, Elon, I'm really feeling bad about what you're doing, and maybe you should rethink this. And Elon says, thanks for telling me. I'm turning like, no. Somebody called Elon and said, dude, our turnover is skyrocketing and we're not losing the bottom of the barrel. We're losing the cream of the crop. And he said, oh, that's not good for anybody, right? Even me. And so,
well, just because you're a great entrepreneur, creative thinker, doesn't mean you're a great manager. I'll just leave it at that. Well, great. Look, again, I just want to thank the folks at i.help for sponsoring the show. Go get your i.help account, $5 a month. Super appreciate their sponsorship and support of the show. Amazing. Next week, again, we're going to dig into a little bit of this kind of correlated to this is 4-day work week and how that's impacting folks. And again, a little different from this 3-day, 2-day, but folks that are, as Mike mentioned, there's some, whether if you're in the retail world or the manufacturing world, you have to be on site, right? And what that looks like is a modification of this. So any last words, Mike, before we wrap?
I think managers need to be thinking about what we came up today of MFB, managing from both, because that's where we're headed. And that's a complexity that's going to land on the manager. And so let's figure that out together ahead of time.
Super good. You just came up. We're going to see you trademark that. All right, great. We will see you next week, March 8th, Wednesday at noon.
Killing in the name of